Okay, we're back in business. So, yeah, let's walk through the tune and talk about what I actually meant to talk about here. Starting, well, the master channel I went through before, it's my headphone monitoring software, the streaming software, and then a mastering mixdown chain there. And then starting from the top, I've got kick and sub playing together here for the main starting part of the tune here. Oops. Yeah. So let's see. Here I was synthesizing a kick from Serum, just using a simple Serum patch to make a kick that I have saved from the past. So this is back to stuff I've discussed in the past before, but with a, let's see if I can blow this up bigger. Yeah, so the sound of a percussion instrument, kick drum, snare drum, any kind of drum, what we think of as a drum, meaning like an impact, sound, bam. Percussive sound is being created through synthesis via the sharp drop off of pitch, usually blended with noise, and that sharp drop of the pitch. So essentially a sound going from really high, like a really, really high note, like dee 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 dee, down to a really low note very quickly. Instead of, if it was going down slowly, it would sound like, this pitch dropping steadily down. But if you do it very quickly, it goes from high to low so fast in a matter of milliseconds that it creates the sound of a transient of an impact, like a basically. So that's how they synthesize drum sounds and kick sounds like that. And so this is being done in this case where I have this envelope here in Serum. Again, this is not specific to Serum, just any synthesis, any synthesizer will be doing this. So you have an envelope set here. Here you have LFOs you can use, and you can set them to running in an envelope mode. And then I have this immediate attack, meaning that the attack here, the sound initially, the envelope starts up at the full amount here, has a very short hold over here of tell me how long? No, but it's just this very short hold duration here, and then this sharp decay here, where you can see like the I also set it in rate, but I could set it to hertz, to show that this yeah, decay. Never mind. That's for the LFO. This decay is fading out like this, but still it's this very sharp drop down. You can see it play out as I hit the note. That's happening very quickly. So this LFO is being mapped to, let's see, the level of the sine wave here, just a basic sine wave being played, and the level of this, the cutoff of this filter. So those are quickly snapping up. Then I have another envelope that is going to the pitch. Yeah, this is the one going to the pitch up here, the coarse pitch amount. You can see in the matrix here, yeah, LFO2, which again, these are LFOs, but they're being used as envelopes. LFO2 here being sent to the coarse pitch of oscillator A. And this is what is, so this is where I could, oops, wrong button. So this one, if I play it, but if I stretch this envelope out a lot longer, well, it's still so fast that you just hear it changing that. But this is, there, you can hear it playing a really high-pitched sound as I increase the envelope amount. So you have a very fast envelope. Yeah, in this case, you can see here the BPM this is at 1/64th timing for this whole window here. So if I slowed that down and really stretched it out, you could hear the decay in it, or the fall, the pitch. Well, you should. It's also doing this. What is this also doing there? Why is this? Why do I have this on here too? I don't know. Okay. 0. Turn that off. Oh yeah, the amp envelope is still really. Yeah, there we go. I'm just trying to show what this sounds like, what it's doing, but a lot slower. So yeah, that pitch down. Now I didn't have this set all the way up. I had it set like here. Yeah, that's what it's doing, just a lot faster. I had this set like these fast rates here. Like this. Yeah. Yeah, so then just making that much faster, again, I went from like a 2 bar, timing to like 1/32. For this, that's the timing of this whole window of how long this envelope or LFO window is here. So yeah, that's what that produces though after it's sped back up, is the kick drum synthesis of having an oscillator, having the pitch of an oscillator brought from high to low very fast with an envelope that slopes down very quickly like that. There's also a noise envelope in there too, giving it a bit of noise. The noise is what helps give that kind of grit, that noise to the transient, to the initial burst of the drum hit. It gives it that white noise sound that's mixed in there too. So yes, that is the kick drum being synthesized here in Serum. Then I have just some kick pattern in there. And then I have copies of it. Like I've shown before in examples, I have copies of the same MIDI pattern where I could take, this is all broken up, but I could take the same MIDI pattern and just paste it here. In these copies for trigs that are just empty MIDI channels with nothing on them, but when they play, they still send the MIDI signal you can see here. Why is it playing that? That should not be playing that. I'm to solo that. Why is it? Stop. That's so weird. Anyways, something's weird with my computer today. I don't know. Yeah, I have these empty MIDI channels that are playing. Oh, it's because it's soloed. Yeah, never mind. It's being sent to the sub, so it played the sub too when I soloed it. Yeah, so these are empty MIDI channels with no instrument on them, nothing on them down here, just with the MIDI notes. And as you can see by this flashing yellow bar here, that is still playing the MIDI signal of the kick, the same signal of the kick, but being used for sidechaining purposes. So I have this first one, kick trig 1, being sent to the output, being sent to the sub, and then to the shaper box plugin there to do the sidechaining for the sub here. So you have the slope for the sidechaining here with the kick, and like that. And I obviously screwed up my kick preset messing around with it. I'm just gonna back to that. There we go. Yeah, nice thing about synthesizing the kick too is that, I mean, you're creating your own percussion sounds, your own kick drums. It's fun and you're making something that's unique and is yours. But you're also in full control then of the pitch and the harmonics of everything. So in this case, it's not just triggering a sample, you know, so the note you're playing actually matters. So you can play back the note, like this is in the key of A, so I'm playing A3 as the note for the kick drum so that it is in tune with my bass and the rest of my song and everything. That's, you know, one, you know, really easy thing to do then if you're synthesizing the drum sounds is have them in tune. So yeah, and I have the copies of the kick drum pattern playing in these empty MIDI trig channels and being sent to sidechain the sub here. Let's take a look at that. Some sound here. There's a lot of highs and a lot of harmonics to it. So in this case, I have a sine wave here being mixed with a saw wave and some noise. Basically, I just took a really standard sub bass where you turn this off. You have a um, very standard sub bass sound. Oh, that's why it's down a little too low. Okay, there we go. A very standard sub bass sound of just a sine wave being mixed with noise. I've gone over this before, but the noise providing the sound like distortion, but without actually distorting it, gives it that fuzzy, you know, crunchy fuzz, you know, distortion sound to it. The noise is going through this filter here, which is basically like an adjustable. It's just like a bandpass filter essentially, but being adjusted the amount that you let through. So um, yeah, and so the noise is being just having the lows and the extreme highs filtered out of it. The level is also getting a little wobble from the level here to just give it some kind of movement, a little bit of movement to that noise sound. And then it's all just being mixed with a sine wave over here that importantly, the random phase is set to 0, turned off. Default serum oscillators will be set with full random phase, meaning that the sub just starts on a different random phase every time. The the sound wave, the wave is being triggered in a different random phase every time you trigger it, which is can be good for some sounds, but not in this case. We want that off, and then it gives a consistent um, start in the phase for the wave form every time we trigger it. And then, yeah, it had this sound mixed in with it then. Just a oscillator that is also being sent through the filter here. I have it turned on here. See for the filter, I have oscillator B and the noise being sent through the filter. And that's just it's just adding a little harmonics to the bass because I don't know, why not? Yeah, the FX for it, very simple, just a little bit of distortion, saturation, and the notch filter in the middle, just filtering out some of those middle frequencies, and that's it, combined together for the bass. Yep, with the kick. This is, you know, the example I've talked about before, but where the sidechaining timing will affect your kick and bass relationship and shape the sound. And so that is will determine the kind of feeling you get from it, mostly with the release timing. I've explained before, but this is just using Shaper Box as a way to do sidechaining. You can also do the same with any compressor in sidechain mode. This is just a nice visual way of looking at the sidechaining too. I mean, this is what's happening for your sidechain compression curve. So you would look at it like this time from starting from the left. This one is starting at no compression, full volume at 0. And then the attack time is down to this here, which is the attack time in this case. It says it on the bottom here when I'm actually moving it. That attack time is set at 4 milliseconds, 3.5 milliseconds, just a little bit of attack time, 2 milliseconds, whatever. A very quick attack time. And give it a 2. A very quick attack time. So when the sound triggers, it immediately triggers this envelope of essentially compression because it's just turning the volume down. That's what the compressor is doing in sidechain mode. So that triggers in 2 milliseconds, turns the volume all the way down to this level, minus infinity. It's in gray there. It's really hard to see. But this is 0 dB up here, and this is minus infinity down at the bottom. So with that very quick attack of practically 0, or 2 milliseconds, it cuts the volume of this channel, and then the slope of the return here is what we're seeing. This is the release timing of a compressor in sidechain mode, or a compressor in general. But in sidechain mode, this is the release timing here, and so I'm adjusting it, and this is where the release time you give to it will determine the sound of the kick bass pattern. Does the bass immediately return at full volume once the kick hits, or does it fade back in? This sidechaining with a longer release time is what gives that kind of that pumping action of a lot of dance music where they had the kick and then the bass fading in after the kick, just doing that wow, 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 wow kind of fading in, because they just have that's just happening with a longer release. So if I play this and adjust the release time, you can start to hear that. Yeah, so you can hear that fading in. So that's a style choice. That's a design choice. Whether I want the bass to have the kick and then that bass womp fades in with some delay after that, or if I want it to happen immediately. I can turn it back down to where it was and have it. Yeah, back to just like an immediate return of the bass, essentially. This part down here, this setting where you're adjusting the bottom length of the bottom part of the curve here, you can also see it says in milliseconds how long it is down here. Say if I put it at here, 60 milliseconds. Well, another thing to do then is take a look at your kick. We can duplicate this kick, and then, well, I'm going to just turn the rest of it off because I don't need to do all of it. And then bounce track in place. And then let's look at it. So now we have the kick and audio. And let's look at the kick then. If we zoom in, we can see that, okay, this first tail head of the kick, this is the transient, where the waves are closer together, where you're having that noisy, more, initial impact, followed by, as the waves spread out, that is the bassy part of the kick. This tail end part is just the bass, lingering bass harmonic of the oof, the kick that you feel. And so if we look from the transient down to the most, section of the kick down to the tail end, down here in the bottom left, it'll tell you timing when you have it selected. So if I select it there and look, see, well, how long is that? 94, there's 80 milliseconds. The initial part of, a lot of kicks in this similar time range is 55, 60 milliseconds. You can see that there's 60 milliseconds up to, the full kick back to 0 is 160. But if I look at it and see like, well, here, right here is 70, 80 milliseconds long. This is 74 milliseconds long here. I can see, well, okay. Then if I set my sidechain timing, if I set this bottom of the curve to 70, 75 milliseconds, and then it fades back up to the full volume there, then I know that that curve, that sidechain curve, is allowing that much of the kick to come through before it slopes back in. And then this full return to volume I can see here is like, yeah, 100 and let's put it at 160, 161, there. So now with this curve, it kind of matches like this return to 100, there's 161 there. This curve kind of matches the kick timing. So I can see that, okay, the whole kick is being sidechained in the bass there, and we listen to it. And yeah, sounds perfect. You can hear the kick clearly punching through because the bass is fully cut in that sidechain curve. And then going back up to full volume there in that piece. So yeah. Okay, so as a demonstration, I printed that to audio. I can get rid of it now. So that is the kick and the bass. Taking time on that because it's that's important, But anyway, so with that kick and sub pattern, the rest of the track had a break in it here. This is just some random, random drum break from samples that I have. It's cut up a few times. I like to work with samples, cutting them up just on the grid here like this because it's really easy to do that. You can see where I've just cut it a few times here to give some variation to it, playing the full break and then cutting it. Like this here. So what I would do is just like select a part of the break and then just like duplicate it, copy it, etc. So that's like what I did here. Chopped it a few times to give it some stuttering, some, little breakcore action, stuff here. How did I do? A little flam thing there. Yeah, if you make really small cuts of a drum break, you get that kind of well, it's like a flam, it's called, where they play like a snare drum like really fast, that you get this kind of like kind of buzz thing. But in chopped up breaks and breakcore we hear that where they can make these kind of noises like that. I mean, if you really repeat it and make it small, you get stuff like that. If you want to make it real breakcore, you just do like that a lot. Like that's how they do that kind of stuff. It's just it's just cut up into really small pieces. Yeah, I mean, I won't go into that whole side tyrant, but I mean, or tangent, but yeah, I mean, this is the principle of audio rate oscillation and stuff. If you cut up breaks and stuff into really small pieces, if you cut it up into really tiny things and repeat it, you start to just get new tones because it's playing just so fast. It's oscillating into new perceived tones like this, like. I mean, that's just, yeah, part of the fun of chopping up breaks, playing with stuff like that. That's how, in some cases, breakcore artists get these real fast break patterns that also have different tones in them too, because they're chopped up into really small pieces and playing around with it like that. But yeah, in this case, I just had it chopped a few times. Yeah. not too heavy in the breakcore in this piece. Mainly just I like this the beat of this drum loop. So I had it treated with a tube amp here. This is this free Voxengo tube amp, just giving a bit of saturation. I have the saturation turned on. I have it set to 8 times oversampling. Oversampling again, meaning how many times it's sampling the audio as it's processing it. So normal mode is 1, up to 8 times is just sampling it more. So it's just sampling it more to give like a bit more detail and clarity and accuracy in the sampling, and providing a bit more saturation to it. It's all CPU intensive though, so it's just if you can get away with doing that or not. Drive turned up a little bit, not to distort it too much, if I really crank it. Just to give it a bit of crunch. Bias is just turned up. This is just kind of affects the distortion algorithm, and low pass filter, I have it turned down to 4.5, K, because I don't really need to distort or saturate anything above that, above 5K, and a sound like this is just kind of noise in a sense. Well, is it noise? Let's look at the EQ. Take the bottom here and put the soloing part up to 5K and listen above that. What does it sound like? It's noise, so distorting that or saturating that doesn't really provide much of a benefit. So, and then I have a 15% of the dry mix of the unsaturated mix in there, and yeah, just a little tube amp drive, just to give it a little more crunch, and a filter, auto filter with the frequency doing a little sweep up, here in the intro and stuff. This yeah, a little filter, a little low pass filter sweep in, a little bit of drive on it, a tiny bit, not too much, and then yeah, simple the EQ. Oh, I have Saturn, another distortion, multiband distortion plugin on here. I'm just giving a bit of distortion and saturation to it, a bit additionally, and turn it off in solo and A and B with it on and off. Go back to it. Several layers of subtle distortion adding up to being a more just kind of warm, thick, crunchy sound is often better than one heavy layer of distortion. I mean, you could do that if it works. It works. It's just that it's a lot easier to kind of fine tune and dial in a sound when if you're just doing heavy saturation from one source, it can the changes you make are just a little more extreme and noticeable. So sometimes it's nice to have 2 different layers of things going on like this. And Saturn is nice because it's multi-band, so I have one band set here, 300, 330 or something. Saturating is kind of the lower part, and then the mids and up into the highs, treating the highs and stuff differently. Not saturating the highs too as much as the rest of the stuff, and saturating the lower end a little bit more to give it a little more boom and stuff, and using this dynamics level here to thicken up the distortion or the saturation in that range a little bit more too. Yeah, I don't know, Saturn good. An EQ, bypass, taking down the 250 mud kind of zone a little bit. Yeah, you can hear what that's like. Yeah, the natural patterns of human hearing also accentuate frequencies around 3000 and stuff, and so this is at 5000 but it's this kind of higher range here are naturally perceived loudly, so sometimes it's beneficial to cut or reduce volume in those cases, in these areas. I'll solo this part here with this function here. I'll solo this range, and you can hear kind of why I'm, reducing that by 2 dB a little bit. Yeah, you hear how it's just this kind of, it's high, it's noisy. There is some characteristics of the drum break in it for sure, but it is not, say, as important as this bandwidth here, like this one, for example. You hear a lot of information from the break in that, so that's, very different than like this range where I just have this reduced a little bit to make it less harsh, essentially. It's subtle, but it adds up. So, yeah. And then I was boosting the highs above like 13K and stuff here because there's not much information there anyways, and I just like it boosting the high air, they call it sometimes, the air kind of presence feeling of the break a little bit. Again, there's not much to it there, but that's why I was boosting it a little bit. And then I have an imager on it that is making everything below 200 hertz mono, increasing the stereo image of the mids a little bit. And everything above 5K, 6K, 6K, making that mono because, again, it's kind of just like noise if you hear it. Noise meaning that it doesn't benefit much from a wide stereo image, and it kind of can just add noise to the stereo width at that high frequency. It doesn't really help much to have that wide, so I'm focusing the width on just this mid-range here, And then the exciter is also doing a similar principle. No excitement. No excitement above 5K. None, happening below 300 or whatever this was. Yeah, 300. And then exciting the mid band a bit here, the same, kind of like the core, the bulk of the sound. Excitement, meaning it is just adding some harmonic content and doing certain algorithms based on these things you select here, either analog, retro, tape, tube, warm, triode, dual triode, these different things like tape or analog saturation or diode saturation and stuff that are they're algorithms for these different that replicate the characteristics of these different things like tape saturation, etc., tube saturation, and then just giving that a little bit to this thing. You see I have the mix at 100%, but only an amount of 6 or something here, dialed in just a little bit, nothing too heavy, but just to kind of boost and saturate and excite, quote unquote, this this frequency range of the break a little bit. And then I've got a little bit of OTT, 10% of an OTT's multiband dynamics on here with the low turned down a little bit. Just one tick down on the low, or a little bit down on the low. And I'm going to move the mids up a little bit. Yeah, just 10% of OTT. I mean, it's kind of a meme. OTT can help and can make things sound nice, but it also really destroys it too. I mean, if I turn it up to 100%, you hear what happens. This is something you want to use, OTT and stuff like that are things you want to use sparingly. So things like 10% are good, just a little bit. And yeah, got some gain staging in between there, just taking it down 2 dB after the exciter, which you could do in the exciter itself. You could just adjust the output level here, obviously, but I don't know. I just put a utility there. And then it's bringing this gain, makeup gain up a little bit with the glue compressor, just to where it's very lightly clipping here in the soft clipping mode. Could engage the threshold a little bit if I wanted to. And then, most importantly, last but not least, transient shaper, using the transient master to using any transient shaper to increase the attack of the transients, but reduce the sustain. And this can be very helpful in noisy breaks like this, breakcore, breaky, jungle style breaks, where you have a lot of noisy percussion in this break. By reducing the sustain, you are reducing the sustain of all those drum hits and transients while yet also increasing the impact of those transients with the increasing the attack. And it can just help clean up noise in the mix of this stuff in a break. Like tunes like this having a noisy, amen style drum break, just like rattling on during your track can take up a lot of frequency space and be very noisy and hard to mix. So this can help achieve that. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of breakcore sounds like very noisy, because that's just the nature of those breaks. Um, Especially if you get into distorting it and stuff, for sure. But anyways, I'll play around with this sustain a little bit. You can hear if I really crank down the sustain, you can hear how much that reduces it. Yeah, so again, I don't want it to completely take out the rides and the cymbals and stuff in the break, but I also want to reduce it from what is that? It doesn't zero after you've set it, so okay, add zero the way it normally is. Down half. Yeah, you can hear how there's just a lot more space for everything else in the song by reducing that sustain of that break a bit. So done that here and increase the attack of it to just give it a little more impact, a little more punch to it as well. Yeah, spending a lot of time on that too, because that's important, because that will has a very strong impact on the overall mixing and sound of the whole tune. So with the break with the break locked in and the sub and the kick all locked in, working well together. Yeah, got that basis for the song and a strong start already with that. So that's cool. And then this stuff here, this little accent I'll come back to later. The other bulk of this track too, sorry, I can ramble about things. I'll try to, work through the rest of this in a timely manner. The chords, this is kind of what inspired this piece to begin with, playing around with big chord sounds. So I have this big chordage happening here, where I started with this is based on an A, basically. Let me arm this. This is based off mainly the chord starting with that A. And again, I just built the chord off of holding notes with it and finding notes that provided a good feeling with the root note and building my chords around that. Like I've said, you don't have to really understand music theory if you can just play with things that way, like deciding like, well, I want to start with this root note, and then what goes well with it. That's obviously a very different vibe and different sound than I mean, that's just minor and major. But yeah, you know, holding down notes like that, building your sound around it. Figuring out, well, that sounds good, you know, together. So I built out this chord progression from that also by taking this, taking this. This is important in it because combined with the A here, having that high note in it gives it is an important part of that harmonic stack of this chord. And then I transposed it down just like and moved a few, you know, things around, obviously. So I made that chord progression, and then it's just copied out the same for all of this, except here it's an octave lower. And I have changed the sound quite a bit through different automations. So this sound is constructed using 2 square waves, both playing in wide unison, one playing in 7 unison. Oops. Oh yeah, sorry, the wave table position is being automated. Why is that? I don't know. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, because I'm automating the waves as changing the sound. But anyways, so if I go back to here, no, back to like here. Yeah, there we go. It's playing this modified square wave here in unison, 7 voice unison, mixed with this one, playing in 4 voice unison. I have this pulse width reduced square wave here, meaning the you can see it in the stack here. You can go from a full square wave to a half to a quarter and an eighth or whatever, and even less narrower square wave. And that changes the sound a lot as you hear the narrower the square wave pulse width is changed, the more kind of like high and nasally it gets, kind of. So these wide waves with the unison are being played together through not even a filter in this case, just with some distortion, a bit of hyper dimension. This is kind of like phaser dimension stuff to it, through a chorus with the low pass filter opened up to let the highs through, in half multi-band compressor boosting the volume and smashing it a little bit to make it a little louder, but not too much, really. Not really much at all. Little delay, little reverb. Just, you know, you can see the mix amounts. Oops, you can see the mix amounts here, you know, not very much, just a little bit. Actually, I turned that down. Oh yeah, I turned those. Never mind, these can go off and get rid of those. So I was using delay and reverb in the channel instead, not the synth. So a pretty simple voice, again, the super saw kind of sound of using unison, making something sound very wide and very buzzy, very fleshy, you know. So when played together in a stacked chord, sounds like that. And then I'm automating the wave tables of each oscillator, because that will give a very different sound, whether you're playing square waves, sine waves, saw waves, etc. Will change the sound a lot. So I've changed that. I've used that as a way to give real direct changes between, like, say, the intro here You see him playing sine and triangle waves here. Very smooth sounding versus when it drops in, then playing the square waves. Not here. I mean here. Yeah, very bright sounding, and then it drops down to, you know, say back to the other waves here. Yeah, to give a very different sound characteristic of it, very different timbre to the chord. And that is just the waves here in the macros. This macro is assigned to the wavetable position for here. This one's assigned to the wavetable position here. And then the rack down here, again, using the configure setting, and then you can click on anything here, and it'll be mapped down here. Then I'm just automating those wavetable shapes here like this in the automation lane, switching between different ones. And yeah, then I have some delay on it here, a bit of reverb here, just sloped down to this EQ range. And then imager boosting the width, making it a very wide sound so that it gives other space in the middle to other sounds. And this one's more concentrated on the wide edges, because again, making space for things in your mix is in volume, frequency, range, and also stereo image placement. So I'm making this a wide sound on the sides so that it fits well with, say, things like the bass and the break. Essentially, because this is a very wide, buzzy sound, you know, you can hear a lot of buzzy highs in this. I wanted to make sure it fit well with the other buzzy sound here, the break. And so I wanted to make sure that the stereo width of the break also fit well with the chord so that they didn't clash, because they share a lot of the same frequency range spacing. You know, in other words, they both have a lot of highs. So I wanted to make sure they fit well together in the frequency or in the stereo image spectrum. So yeah, so by having, I mean, naturally a lot of drum break samples that you get from, like, you know, old school kind of drum, you know, amen stuff and drum samplers or drum machines and stuff like that. A lot of them are mono. Like this one is just, you know, dead mono, it looks like. I mean, it's mono, it's two channels in this, but they're just copies of each other. They're the same. So giving it a little bit of width so that it's not totally mono is nice, but not making it too wide so that it doesn't clash with the wide sound of the chord. Did I just solo that again? Imager, no. Chords, imager, solo. Ah, yes. Don't forget to, if you solo to listen to a band, don't forget to unsolo it. So yeah, width in the chords, and then into some EQing. With that width, I was also reducing the side image, though, in the low, like 500 and below range here, and 5,000 and above range here too, just to not have so much width in the highs and the lows of it, because they are more important in this mid range here, and I wanted to reduce them in this ranges a bit. So then just a little bit of makeup gain, not clipping it, but just a little bit of gain here, and then yeah, we got our chords here. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention in the kick, of course, I'm EQing it and using a transient shaper to increase the attack a little bit, and can reduce the sustain or something a little bit too to taste. But yeah, so kick, sub, break, chords, it's the bulk of the tune. Other big thing I had in the tune was two different lead sounds, like this acid lead here, this one. Oh god, the plugin breaking it, come on. I hate this. I have to just reinstall this stuff because it keeps breaking on me. It's frustrating. What is wrong with you? Come on. It's playing this ARP. It's playing an ARP. It's playing the same chord, essentially, of the same chord of the chords voice up here, but with an arpeggiator on it set to 16th rate, to play the rate that I want, and the steps just are going between. So an arpeggiator, with an arpeggiator on it, instead of playing the chord notes all together in a chord, like a big sustained chord, it will arpeggiate between the notes that you have laid out in the chord structure. And yep, and that's going through a similar chain of effects, just like you've seen before with EQ, delay, and reverb, imager, exciter. Same thing. It's just my Arturia acid plugin. It just keeps breaking, and so it's not playing again right now, which is fantastic. I'll reload it after I go through the rest of the track. Yeah, and so okay, but then we have a vocal sample here. Vocal sample playing just this 2-note pattern back and forth like this, here, this one. So I've got a sampler. I've got a sample chucked into it, loaded into it. Let's see where this came from. Right click, show in Explorer. Well, no, not that. Show in browser here. And yeah, so this are samples I've recorded. Here's a sample from a movie. This is a movie with I think like African child soldiers and stuff, but they're like singing in this one part, here and stuff. Oh yeah, again, I can't, you don't hear it because this is only being sent to headphone monitoring, so this isn't going through my master channel, so you don't hear it in the stream. But yeah, let's just say, okay, new channel, just so you can hear it. It's this sample here, like this. Yeah, just, you can see I got a bunch of them here. They're just different random samples from like when these kids and stuff are singing in a movie, but I have this end part of it looped here, or being used. Yeah, like that part there. So I have that sample here dropped into the sampler, and then I've just adjusted it, the playhead position to this zone, to this range here, to just where it worked, and then playing different notes. Just, again, delay, reverb, same effects, same imager, stuff like that on it that I'm not going to go over again. But yeah, just figured out that these notes worked well with the melody, this. Yeah. I've got a little bit longer note here so that it plays the sample a little bit longer and you get that clap sound in it. Yep, vocal sample. And then what did I have? Oh, then another atmospheric sample of something, just like. Yeah, just some atmospheric sample stuff that I recorded of just like long noise reverb and stuff, playing just to give some atmosphere background and a, what is this, a riser thing here? Yeah. Yeah, creating a riser or downer by playing noise in a synth. Here I'm just I just have one oscillator voice going, but it's playing a noise wave, white noise wave. So just a noise. But then, so noise doesn't have pitch because it occupies all frequency ranges at the same time. That's why it's just this white, static noise. But in order to create the illusion of the pitch moving in a noise, you filter it. So I'm using a bandpass filter here and then sweeping the filter up so that it gives the impression of a rising pitch of the noise. Yeah, that noise sweep up there. Yeah, delay, reverb, etc. Just for a little effect movements and then I'm also doing the opposite, sweeping it down in this case here, you know. Yeah, for effects. Yeah, that is it. Let me think of something to talk about while I quick reload this project, and then I can actually show the arteria, the acids, the synth that keeps, you know, the where the registration keeps breaking on it and stuff. So yeah. Essentially, yeah, like this is not a finished tune, of course. It's something I've just been working on, but it has the solid idea to start with, and that's generally what's important. Where if you get an idea, like where I started with this chord progression, just thinking, oh, that's chord progression sounds nice, and then found a lead sound that worked well with it with these arps. These are arps, these arpeggios, and then just, you know, just heard and just found more sounds that fit in with it well, and the tune kind of builds itself out from there. That's generally the way things go, where you get a good solid idea, and then it's just fleshing it out more and adding more details to it to turn it into a real finished product. So now let's see if this works here. Yeah, there we go. So this is I don't want to open the plugin again because I don't want it to break on me, but it doesn't matter. The plugin, I'm not actually using the plugin much other than it's just playing its initial preset default square wave or sine wave or whatever. I mean, I'll open it up, you know, whatever. You know, but yeah, I'm not using the sequencer. I'm externally sequencing it. It's playing it's playing a square wave. It has a bit of the cutoff and envelope and stuff, just the way it came preloaded. It doesn't really matter. It's mainly this synth. Sorry, that's a subwave. It's playing a saw wave here. Acid synth is 303, Roland 303 emulation. Acid synth stuff is essentially just emulating the transistor, the circuitry architecture of it and its filter that gave it that characteristic sound. But then I'm not even messing with this very much in this case. Like this has some LFOs and stuff just that are moving the cutoff a little bit, and everything with it has its own little distortion section to it as well. It's a good plugin, but you know, essentially, it's just giving that acid sound, and then I'm playing my own pattern here. Again, by using the same chord pattern of the chords, just like literally copied and pasted it, and put the arpeggiator on it, though playing at the rate that I wanted, and it's in the up mode where it goes only up, not up and down, or not down to up. And then, yeah, it just plays those the same notes from the chord, but in an arpeggiation like that. And then delay, reverb, etc., standard. And then I had another copy of it down here that's just playing an echo. Oops. And this is cool because this is happening because of the synth. In this case, this synth came, it has a bunch of its own patterns programmed into it. And so I'm not sequencing, I have the sequencer turned on in this case of it. It's the same synth, just another copy of it. But in this case, I have the sequencer turned on so that it is not just running on external sequencing. It is running on it's running on its own internal sequencer, but the way that it's being fed the same notes of the chord sequence just happen to do something weird to it to kind of like essentially like break the sequence, like because essentially like if you're using the sequencer built into the synth itself, you should just be playing like one root note and then it just plays the whole sequence based off of that root note. But because I'm giving it this chord stack of notes moving around, it essentially kind of screwed it up and kind of breaks it, which led to this very interesting result of not playing it normally, and not playing it like the other one did either. So it gave it this unique result that I just got paranoid about losing just now. So I duplicated the tracks and I'm just bouncing them to audio to have audio copies of them saved in case that phenomenon of the synth I was just describing decides to break on me and not work again, for some reason, which is definitely possible. So I'm printing it to audio right now to have a copy of it saved, and yeah, that's it. Oh, I mean, up above here, I have a couple these two channels up here that are just making this kind of like bum 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 pattern that is it's kind of cool, but I'm not sure if I would keep it or not. But it's really nothing much to discuss. So that is me talking about this for an hour. So I kind of leave it at that and say, yeah, that basically shows everything that I did in this track, to go through. You have a understanding of it now. See, I printed this stuff into audio to copies of it. Because again, that's what I would do. It's what I recommend doing is, you have a instrument and you have the sound, you have the sound designed and built and planned out, played out like this, and you have your automations drawn and thinking, okay, I'm happy with how this sounds. Well, then what I like to do is select that, duplicate it, and then right click, bounce track in place. It used to be called freeze and flatten. I don't know why they changed it to bounce in place in Ableton 12, but okay, fine. Some people call it bouncing. Some people call it flattening. I call it printing to audio. Sometimes it's, whatever. It's the same thing. But I make a copy of it, I duplicate it, and then freeze and flatten or bounce in place the duplicate so that I can save the original instrument, and I just turn all that off, but have it saved so that it's preserved, so that if I decide I want to change something about the sound, I can go back and just turn that back on, and still have it, make my tweaking, and print a new copy of it. Whereas if I didn't duplicate it and just freezed and just printed the sound itself to audio, well, then that's it. Then you're stuck with that, and the original, is gone or whatever. So I recommend doing it that way, duplicating and then freezing, flattening that to audio, and then turning off the original instrument and working with the audio, because it's also a good way to save resources. It's easier on your computer to not be running the live VST instrument. It's also better for you to get things done because it's commitment, and you're committing it to audio and working with it that way. So yeah, it's that's the idea. Basically, that's the rundown of the tune. This kind of melodic breaks tune. Again, well, hope you enjoyed it. Something for me to ramble about and talk about techniques and theories. Again, it's just kind of more important that it's a jumping off point as a way to talk about what's being done and why, to understand the production mentality behind it. Okay, see, now that this is printed to audio, just like these other ones, I would open up the track here, select it, Control A to select all, Control G to group all of it, and then minus and 0 to collapse the group and turn it off. And then I would change the name of it to chords. Change the name of it to chords inst for instrument, and then turn it off, turn the channel gray, turn it off, and then there, that's done. Now I'm working with just the audio, but then if I ever want to make changes, I can just go back to it, and open it up again. So yeah, so thanks for checking this out. I hope it was interesting, and of course, if you have any questions and stuff, let me know, and yeah, see you guys next time. Okay, bye.